I find it kind of odd that people who decide to live in France spend time on social media describing the things that they don't like about France. Of course, not everybody, but some people seem to spend an inordinate amount of time complaining about life in France when they have decided to live in France. The complaints generally fall into three or four separate categories. One is bureaucracy, one is French people and French customs, another is the things that you can't get or can't find in France. I think probably the most instructive story is the story of Maurice the Rooster. I, you may have read about Maurice the Rooster. He made international news. He lived on a farm on a small island off the Atlantic coast of France. And he did what roosters do in the morning. He crowed. He made noise. A French couple, oddly enough, a French couple, bought a holiday home on the island, and they complained to the farmer that Maurice was making noise in the morning. And the farmer said, well, Maurice is a rooster. And the French couple said, well, could you keep Maurice quiet? And the farmer said, well, you can't keep a rooster quiet. So the French couple said, well, then please kill Maurice. And the farmer said no. So the French couple sued the farmer because of the noise that Maurice was making. It went all the way up to the top courts in France, and the French decided that roosters crow, and it was just too bad if you bought a house next to where a rooster lived. Not only that, they made the couple who sued the farmer pay all of the farmer's expenses, over €1,000, and the French passed a law. The law said that the sights, the sounds, the smells of rural France are an integral part of the life of France, and they are protected by law. So if you don't like the smell of the manure that they're spreading on the field, if you don't like the smell of the macerated grape goo that's left over when they're making making wine in the local cooperative, and believe me, that stuff smells terrible. If you don't like the sound of a rooster, too bad. The French have decided by law to protect the sights, the sounds, and the smells of rural France. Another thing that people really don't like is what they call the chasse. And again, I'm talking about rural France, and the chasse is the hunt. The French don't have a lot of handguns, but they do have long rifles, and they do hunt. It's strictly regulated. You have to go through tests and be a member of a club to own a gun, and then the hunting season is strictly limited. You can only shoot during hunting season on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. But hunting is important in France. It's important for two reasons. Number one is for food, and number two is to keep down pests, particularly here in the rural southwest of France. Wild pigs, wild boars, can devastate a vineyard in a very short amount of time. I don't know what you call a herd of boars, but a pack of boars that decide that the grapes in a vineyard are particularly tasty can run through a vineyard in a very short period amount of time and really destroy that vigneron's livelihood in a matter of hours. So particularly at the end of the growing season and then through the winter, there's a lot of hunting in France, and you can hear the shooting. And it's what happens if you live in a rural area. I lived in a rural area of northern New Jersey, actually, very rural area. Grew up on a dirt road in New Jersey, if you can believe that. And we had hunters all the time, all around us. And the French do too. And there are accidents. Oddly enough, it seems that the most common accidents is sons shooting their fathers to death. But it does happen, and it is a problem. But if you live in a rural area in the south of France, you should expect the hunt. And you should get to know the mayor, and you should get to know the local hunting club. And if they're too close to your house, or if there's a group of hunters who, as hunters, sometimes do get drunk and shoot indiscriminately, then you should have a relationship that allows you to speak on behalf of yourself and your family to the people who control the hunt. Stores are particularly interesting. What's in the stores, what's on the shelves, British biscuits, peanut butter, and before anybody gets upset, I'm talking about peanut butter that's not doesn't use palm oil. and it's available here. You can have peanut butter without palm oil, believe it or not. I've had people yell at me that there's no such thing as peanut butter without palm oil, but there is, and it took a while for me to find a decent source of peanut butter here, because peanut butter that's imported from the United States is really, really expensive. You have to find either French peanut butter or peanut butter that's imported from other parts of the world, and we have, and I've got plenty of peanut butter, thank you very much. Oddly enough, one of the things that Americans say they miss most about living in France is Mexican food. And oddly enough, you can get El Paso stuff here in France, and if you think El Paso stuff is Mexican food, then that's okay. But if you're like the southern woman that I married, who grew up in Texas and who is a fine Tex-Mex cook, you have to have, honest to God, tortillas, and those tortillas have to come by way of the family, who put literally kilos and kilos of tortillas in their luggage when they come to visit us. Black beans, pinto beans, all sorts of Mexican stuff, rotel, for making chili con queso. All of that stuff has to be imported by the family in their suitcases. Mexican food is the one thing that Americans mention most about what they miss about living in France. Bureaucracy is a serious complaint, and I can understand it, and we have been caught up in it. We, as third-party people, as Americans who aren't members of the European Union, we had to renew our residency every year for the first 5 years we were here in France. That cost us 250 euros a piece, over $500 a year, to renew our residency permits until the end of the fifth year, when we could apply for, and we did receive, a 10-year permit, so we don't have to go back until the 2029, I think. Anyway, one of the things that happened during our final interview is that the interviewer said that she needed a fresh copy of the translation of Kathy's birth certificate. Now, we had the birth certificates and our marriage certificate and such other things as needed to be translated when we first came here. So we had a translation, and we handed this interviewer the translation. The interviewer said, well, this translation is more than a year old. You need to have a new one. And we said, well, it was a year old when we first applied. You have a copy of it. It's in our dossier. And the interviewer said, no, we need a brand new one. It seems kind of odd that you need a new translation of a document that hasn't changed over time, but we had to spend the 30 or 40 euros and go to the Center Hobson, which is one of the big translating groups in the area, and get a certified copy of the translation of Kathy's birth certificate. Well, we did it, and as I say, it cost us a few euros, but at least it got the job done, and at least we got our 10-year carte séjour, our 10-year residency permit, our green card, if you will, that is not renewed annually, but that will have to be renewed 10 years from now. There's things that bother expats about the French that are kind of interesting and kind of different. One of the things that you notice in French shops is that when you have the interest of the shopkeeper, now, one of the things that people might complain about is that it's hard to get the attention of shopkeepers in some places, but where we are, shopkeepers appreciate the business, and when you get their attention, they hone in on you, and they don't care about the size of the line. When we go to the butcher, there might be two people. Well, now that there's social distancing and all that, they only allow 2 or 3 people inside the butcher shop, and then everybody else waits outside. And there might be 3 or 4 people waiting outside and 2 or 3 people inside. And the butcher stands and talks with the customer for as long as that customer wants to talk. And they could be old friends, and they could be catching up. They don't care. Once you have the attention of the shopkeeper, you have that shopkeeper's full attention. And however long it takes is however long it takes. And that can make some people very upset if they like to get in and out of stores. It's the sort of thing that people get upset about and people write about on social media, and I just don't understand it. I can understand being upset at bureaucracy. I mean, the French will blizzard you with paper. The French have had centuries to refine their bureaucracy, and I can understand people being upset about it. Now, I have a different view about the French bureaucracy than others. My view about French bureaucracy is that it's not about making things difficult for you. It's about giving the bureaucrat power, giving the bureaucrat the ability to make decisions. If the bureaucrat likes you, it is generally the case that the bureaucrat can find a way to get done what you want done. And if the bureaucrat doesn't like you, what you want done is not going to get done. It's not so much about you, it seems to me, but it's about what the bureaucrat thinks of you. And in that way, the bureaucracy works not necessarily against you, but for the bureaucrat. It gives the bureaucrat power. I don't know what else to talk about. People have all sorts of different reasons why they find life in France difficult during the vendange, during the grape harvest. There are slow-moving tractors on the road during the summer when the vacations happen and it's not during a pandemic. There are big old motorhomes on the road. They go slow and they clog up the small country lanes. There are all sorts of things that you can be upset about in terms of living in France. But what I have said when people ask the question to me, and I'm not doing a video for my friends, what I have said is that there's no other place right now that I would like to be. I really love living here. So I'm not going to pick nits. I'm not going to say, this is what I don't like about France. What I am saying is that these are some of the things that other people don't like about France. And if you've got something that you want to add, put it in the comments and maybe I'll throw it into another video. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe. And I hope you have a good day. Take care.